Sounds great. Well, we're a little bit early, but I'm going to start talking a little bit about our next speaker. So Anuradha is coming to us from India. And what I'm excited about with her conversation is it really feeds into the whole user experience and accessibility and usability of websites and development. And she is a wealth of knowledge. She's been a developer for 7 years. And about a year ago or so, she started to realize and started to learn more about accessibility. And once she started to learn more about accessibility, she really became passionate about it and created a website, which is a phenomenal resource for all of us. And I really encourage everybody to take a look at her website, and that we'll have that available. But I would say this group is really a phenomenal group of individuals. Connect with people on LinkedIn, connect with them on Twitter and other social media platforms, because really the products that we all build, and I'm not a developer, so that you all build, but I'm the one that sometimes sets the vision, is about the communication and people working together. And I think that's the common message that's been really exciting for me. What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, I am really looking forward to hearing your next talk. I haven't had a chance to look at the schedule yet, so it's perfect that they are going to flow so well into each other. I'm really looking forward to it. Do we have our next speaker on deck?
Yes, she does. Hey, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you, Sandra, Lauren?
Good. Well, we got you all queued up. We're all excited about your talk. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you for, yeah. Thanks a lot for the beautiful introduction. Okay. So can I start now? Okay. So thanks a lot, organizers, for having me here. It's an honor to speak at DevFest WI. My name is Anuradha Kumari, as Sandra already introduced me. So today I will be talking about inaccessible websites. It's you, not JavaScript. Before proceeding, these are the social links. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and we can obviously talk more about technical topics from there. So the topics which we are going to cover today, we will start with introduction of accessibility and why should we care about it. Then we will see some of examples on how JavaScript can affect accessibility and some tools for auditing and testing for accessibility. So the first question, what exactly is accessibility? So accessibility, which is also neuronamed as A11Y, where 11 stands for the number of letters between A and Y. So in simple terms, it is making resources and services usable by everyone. Now, why should we care about accessibility? This is because we do not know what our users could be going through. We are dealing with different kinds of users. There can be different kinds of users who are visiting our websites and applications. As per World Health Organization or WHO, there are almost 15% of world's population who lives with some form of disability. The different kind of disabilities can be visual, auditory, speech, motor, cognitive, and much more. Whenever we talk about accessibility, we always talk more about disability, but accessibility is much more than just disabilities. There can be users who have some technical issues, like they are using our content on slow internet connection. Then they might be accessing our content on smaller devices or older browsers, maybe older machines, and so on. Then there could be different situation in which our user could be in, like maybe the user is trying to listen to any audio or video in a noisy surrounding. Then they won't be able to listen it properly. Also, there are some progressive issues, some illness and like aging processes in which, as the time proceeds, some issues start occurring. So let's say for my eyesight, I might be able to look things properly today, but as my age will increase, my eyesight might start deteriorating, and I might need some sort of screen reader or screen magnifier to be able to access the web properly. So, accessibility, in a nutshell, accessibility benefits everyone. We will see just two common examples in which we have been using accessibility tools in our daily life. So, and there is an alert because in the next two slides there will be some animation. So if you feel uneasy while watching animation on motion, please look away. I will let you know once I'm done with the slides. So the first example is subtitles. So I guess many of you would be using subtitles to maybe watch some videos, movies, series, any educational videos, right? This is one of the accessibility features, and it helps a lot more people than just the people who identify as people with disabilities. The second example is dark mode. So personally, I use dark mode a lot, and this is also one of the accessibility features which we use on daily basis. Okay, so I'm done with the animated slides. So you can watch again if you were looking away, and we can move ahead. Nowadays, we have been talking a lot about accessibility, but is it really a new thing? No, not exactly. Our web was always built to be accessible. Even world's first website, it is accessible. So the web is inherently for everyone, but we have been making it inaccessible through our bad practices. Now we know that why accessibility is important. So let us see how can we start with accessibility. The first thing which we can do is to be aware of it. We cannot solve any issue until we know about it, that it exists. So we must first understand, read about accessibility, try to explore it, and then only will be able to implement accessible solutions. There are lots of links, websites, YouTube videos, and tutorials on accessibility. I have listed some of the links here. You can go through them and read about accessibility and guidelines on how we can achieve it. I'm also working on a website, and it is in very early phase right now, but it contains lots of information and lots of resources on where we can find about web accessibility. And there are some examples as well. As we proceed in today's session, we are going to see some of the examples from that website itself. So to the main topic now. How can JavaScript affect accessibility? So today I'm going to discuss three important rules. If we keep in mind, we can really improve web accessibility with the help of JavaScript. The first example is using semantic HTML. Now you might be thinking that I just told that we are going to discuss how JavaScript is going to help with web accessibility. And my first point says using semantic HTML. Well, bear with me. So many a times what we do whenever we are creating any button and we have to create some fancy button with icons or maybe some animations or something, we end up using non-semantic tags like divs and spans. But button, which is a semantic tag, it must be used as a good practice so that the button is accessible by all kind of devices and all kinds of technologies. Let's see it through a demo how to achieve it. So, okay, I'm switching to the demo now, and this is the website which I was talking about earlier. So let's say I have a e-commerce website, right? And there are three buttons on it, three different buttons. One is register now, login to buy, and cart. Now, point to note here is login to buy has been made using a div tag, while the others two are button. If I'm using it using my mouse, I am able to use everything properly. There is no issue with it. But if a keyboard user tries to use this website, let's say that this e-commerce website, they are going to use tab keys to navigate through all the interactive elements on our web page. So they press tab and they can access the register now. If you see there's a focus on it, that means they can reach that button and they can perform that action. Now they want what they want to do. They want to buy something, though they want to log into our website. They tap again, but oops, what happened? It just went to cart button and it skipped login totally. If I shift tab to go back, it again goes back to register now. So we see that this button has been totally skipped from the flow for the keyboard users, and same happens for the screen readers because they also rely on the keyboard. Now, this is highly inaccessible because the user is not able to log in, so they will not visit our website next time. We have just lost a potential customer just because using a div. There are two solutions to it. The first solution is go ahead, use a button tag. If you use button, it's going to be focusable by default, and we do not need to do anything extra. But if you have some maybe business restrictions or some let's say that you already have a website which is on production and it is using lots of buttons which are created using divs, and the cost to refactor them and convert them into the button tag is going to be expensive or complex, then you can still achieve it using JavaScript. This is where JavaScript will come into picture. So how you can do that? So for doing that, the first thing which we need to do is to add a tab index. So if you see the code here, what I have done for div, we say tab index equal to 0. By doing tab index is equal to 0, what we do, we make it tabbable. So if you see this button now, I tab on it and I can access that button now using my keyboard. So all sorted here, and set its role to button so that the screen readers and keyboard, like, they know that what this element does. So they will announce to the user that, hey, you have encountered a button, and so user will know, okay, I can perform some action now. Now the main thing is to how to trigger the action using keyboard. So the keyboard user are obviously not going to click through mouse. What they will do, that they can either use enter key or space bar key to trigger the action. For that, we will have to add an extra event listener. So this is our JavaScript code which does the magic. Add the key down event listener to that element and say, hey, whenever user presses any key, I mean, whenever the key down event happens, check for the key. If the key is either space key or the enter key, go ahead and perform that action. I mean, maybe show the login pop-up or something else, whatever we want to show when the user is clicking on that. So by doing this, what we have done, that we have made this element or these buttons accessible to every kind of user, despite of the platform or technologies which they are using. Sorry. Okay. So rule number 2. So rule number 2 is that all the functionality which we are doing on our website, they must be accessible to the keyboard users. We just saw one example of triggering any action on button that should be accessible through our keyboard. Let's see some other use cases. So some of the common keyboard interactions which user can perform are navigation. They can navigate through different interactive elements, or they can click through any action like submitting forms or clicking on any button. Or if they are using models or some popover over their component, they should be able to exit that component using the keyboards. For this, let's go ahead and see a use case of models. Models are pretty common components across the web. They could be used to either notify the user of any information or to prompt to send some information or fill in some information. Sometimes login or sign up forms also are available in model form, and so on. We are going to see one example of it. So this is our model example. So let's consider that it's you are having a food delivery app, and then there is a button on click of which a pop-up comes up, and there the user can customize the things on your food. Like maybe it's a burger, then they can customize that, what extra things they can add on to your burger, right? So this is a pop-up, and they can close, add to cart, do whatever they want, whatever we have provided it here. It works perfectly fine when we are using mouse. But if we try to use again this using a keyboard, so when I tab on it, the focus comes here. I press the enter key, the popover opens up. Now, the first thing, if you notice, the focus is still behind the model. So the pop-up has opened, the model has opened. So what, as a user, I would have expected that, okay, I get some indication that I am now in the model, but it doesn't happen that way. I am still behind the model right now. So that's the first red flag. I tab again to come to it, but if you see again, the focus is still behind the model. So this is very confusing to the user. However, after some tabs, I can come to the model and now I can perform some action as usual. But if you see that the focus will again go away if you tab out of it. So this is a very bad user experience, and a lot, even in lots of models which we see on the internet, sometimes they don't even have this focus come into the model also. The focus always stays behind, it never comes on the model, and that's why user is unable to proceed. One of the other important things here is the user should be able to close this component using escape key. So if I press escape, nothing happens because we haven't handled it yet. So this is where again JavaScript is can be used really well to make it highly accessible. But before going to the code to make it accessible, I would like to point you to one of the resources which is really good to understand the guidelines on making any component accessible, and it is Why ARIA authoring practices. Here, what they have done that they have provided the guidelines on how to make the components accessible. So for our example, let's say I'm creating a model. So what I will do, I will go to this website and come here and check that, hey, let me know what are the different ways or what are the different things I need to do in order to make my model accessible. And I'm here particularly interested in seeing how the keyboard interaction should happen. So if you see, this is the keyboard interaction content, and the rules which should be there are, the first thing is whenever the dialog is open, the focus should move inside the dialog, and then a tab and shift tab should work properly. One important thing to note here is trapping of focus. So we will see this when we are on the example page. And also the third point is whenever I escape, whenever I press the escape, the dialog or the model should get closed. So we come back to our example and see how we can do that. So first, let's see in action. I tab, I come to this button, and this button is going to open a model which is accessible. So I click enter, I press enter, and the model is open. And now if you notice, the focus has come to the first clickable element on this model. So user now knows that, okay, I'm in the model and I can perform the action right away. They will press tab, tab, tab. Maybe they want to add the onion. So they will say, okay, I want to add onion, and then add to cart. Now the focus tab which I was talking about, if they tab again from here, the focus should never leave this model. It should always be inside this model. So if the user presses tab here, the focus moves back to the first active element of this model. And if I try to press shift tab here, so shift tab, what it does, it moves the focus backwards. So if I do shift tab here, it should take me to the last active element. So all done. And now what I'm doing, I will try to press escape because I want to close this model using escape. I press escape and the model is closed. So we have followed all the accessibility guidelines now. So it is totally accessible now. Let's see the code. So in code, in the HTML part, we have this button which is going to open the model, and inside the model, what I have is maybe an icon which closes it, the cross icon, then some content, and then one submit button. Now, what should happen? Let's jump to JavaScript code. What should happen first of when I click on the open model button? So this is my open model button, and I say that, hey, when you are clicking on it, what I'm doing, that there's this previous active element variable to which I am saving the current active element. So my current active element while pressing that open button was that this button link itself. So what I have done, I've stored the reference of it to this variable, and then I toggle the model. What toggle model does, it just toggles the class of the model. So if it's shown, it hides it, and if it's hidden, it just shows the model. So it's just toggling that show model class. So what this will do for me, it is going to open the model. And the third thing which we are doing to move focus to the model is that we are trying to get the focusable element of the model. What does this method do? So this is going to get all the focusable elements on that model. So I say, hey, give me all the buttons. So for a simplicity of this example, I have just selected all the buttons on that model. So I'm iterating through it and getting all the buttons. So for us, we have two buttons, cross icon, which is the close button, and then the submit button. And get all those, and then I'm returning this the close icon. So I said that, hey, this is the first focusable element on this model. So what it does, it's going to grab it and focus it. So that's how we got the focus on the close button when we opened it. Now, whenever we close it, what we are going to do, that we are going to toggle the model with focus restore. What does this mean? That toggle the model, that is now hide it, removing the show model class. And then in this previous active element, if you remember, we had stored the reference of the button which opened the model. So we are going to have that reference here, and we say that, hey, focus this button now. So that's how when we close the model, that button which opened the model, that gets focused, and user has not lost context. They exactly know from where they started this flow, and now when that flow is finished, they are going to come back to the same element. Then the most important part is when the user is tabbing on it. So all these are handled through key down event handler. So there is this key down event handler which I have attached to the model, the whole model itself. And inside it, we have written that whenever we are pressing tab, then if it's a shift, then you have to move backward. And if the the active element was the first focusable element, then we move the focus to the last element. So this is basically focusing the trapping the focus part of it. And for escape, we say that if the key press was escape, again toggle the model with focus stored. What does it mean again? That close the model and put the focus back to the button which has opened that model. So you can go ahead and check these out in detail also on this web page. So moving ahead. Yeah, so we just saw that we have been using event handlers a lot. So whenever we are trying to make any interactive element, we use event handlers to attach events to different elements. But when doing so, we must always remember that we use device independent event handlers. So there are different kinds of event handlers in JavaScript, and there are mouse up, mouse down events, and many times people end up using these event handlers. But what these do, that they will only be triggered when the user is using mouse. But if the user is using a keyboard, they are not going to be able to do that action if we have attached it to the mouse down or mouse up. So always use the device independent event handlers. And if there is a requirement and which we have to have some sort of events specifically on mouse up and mouse down, do make sure to have a complementary key up and key down event so that we do not block the keyboard users out. The next rule is honoring the user device settings. What do I mean by that? So there are different settings, accessibility settings provided in all the devices to us by default, in Windows, in Mac, iPhone, Android, everywhere. So one of the rules is to switch on or off the animations. So I'm showing the settings for Windows. These settings exist for other platforms also. So if in Windows search, I would like to search for animation settings, you search for it and then you get this show animations in Windows. Go to it and then there is this option called show animations in window. We can on or off it, and if we have switched it off, then we should not be seeing any animations. And we have switched it on, it means that we have no preference as such and we are open to watching animations. So let's see a quick example of it. So here, this is a web page. Currently, I have no such preference and my animations are on. So I'm able to see all animations here. But now let's say I don't feel good when I watch animation. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and switch off my animations. So when I switch off the animations, and after that settings, if I visit any web page, so my expectation is I should not be able to see those animations. So if you see here, since this is accessible example, the animations have now stopped. But if we didn't take care about that, then the animations would still be visible, and this is going to be very uneasy for the users. So we can achieve it using two ways. One is CSS media query way. So in media query, what we can do that the class which contains the animation information, go ahead and put it into the media query called prefer reduce motion. So if user will have no preference, then go ahead and apply the animation. But if user like me, we have turned off the animation, then this class won't get applied, and there would be still images or graphics and no animations at all. Let me close this. Yeah. Now, there is also JavaScript alternative, because many times the scenario are not this easy. They are quite complex. In that case, JavaScript comes handy. We have a match media query in JavaScript. We can say that, hey, match media for this query, which is prefer reduce motion. So if it matches, it means that user has turned it off. And if they have turned it off, I'm not going to apply any class of animation to it. And if they have no such preference, I will attach this class, and this class contains all the animation information, so user can see all the animation on this. So using just this small thing, we can really make our website more accessible for animations as well. So don't apply animations if the user don't want to see them. So this should be rule of thumb. Now let's see quickly some of the ways in which we can test with accessibility in mind. So the first thing which we can do is unplug the mouse. Just try to access and perform actions using the keyboard. And if you are able to do that properly, that means kudos to you, and you have created a very good accessible website. But if you find any errors or you are not able to perform any action using just keyboard, then go ahead and fix them so that it is accessible to all kinds of users. The second thing is you can use the screen readers. There are different kinds of screen readers available, and some of them I have listed here. You can go ahead and use those screen readers and see how your content is getting read to the users who are solely relying on the screen readers to perform their actions. So if it feels all good, then good job. And if not, we can go ahead and fix those issues. Then there are some browser tools and extensions which we can use to test and audit our website. So I've listed some of them here. So I will demo about one of the dev tools. So for that, what you need to do that, go to any website, inspect over it. And when you inspect it, you get different options here. In these options, go to the lighthouse option. This is by default in the dev tools. That's why this is preferable, but you can obviously add different extensions like Axe and all, and they will be available here as well. So for us, what we are going to do is we are going to use the lighthouse, which is available. Check for accessibility and desktop, and you can click on it. It will generate a report for you, and it will list down all the accessibility errors and where they are doing good. So it's a very good way of auditing your website, and it also provides some of the manual checks which we can do, so that because some of the issues cannot be caught by automatic tests, so we need to do the manual testing as well. So if you see here, there is one error with this website. It also shows you what are the elements where the error is and more information about it. Go ahead, check it out. And so the other one is also available in the DevTools, which is the accessibility pane. So for that, you can inspect any element. Let's say I want to inspect this anchor tag, and here you go to these different panes, and from here there is this accessibility pane. Now if you come here, you will see some of the accessibility information. It shows how the accessibility tree has been generated. This is what is used by assistive technologies to understand what element is what and what they read out to the users. So this is some of the information which comes here. So we can use this to see if our elements are accessible or not, and what is the information which is going to the assistive technologies. So this really is one of the handy tools available. Okay. To conclude, whenever we are creating any content, creating any websites or applications, always ask two questions. Can users access it? Like using multiple devices or multiple ways, multiple assistive technologies, can user access all the content and actions? If yes, then does it have the ability to be usable? So they are able to access it, good, but are they able to use it? Are they able to trigger the actions or perform those actions which they came there to perform? If the answer to both is yes, then you have done a great job with accessibility. Always remember, access plus ability equals accessibility. Focus on accessibility just as we focus on everything else. Now, in the end, I also have, I request you, I have an action item which I will request you to perform, is that if you have learned anything from here, please go ahead and pass on the learning. Talk about accessibility to your peers, to your friends, your teammates, and spread the awareness. The lack of awareness is the major reason of inaccessible web. So let's spread the awareness, spread the learning, and help toward creating a accessible web. Thank you.
Thank you. Great talk. I'm really excited about everything that you shared. The chats that have been just buzzing because people are really learning a lot of things from you, and I think your passion really comes through. So, one of the questions that someone had is, how do you get your employer to pay attention to accessibility? How do you get them to even, let the developers focus on accessibility? What has been your experience?
So actually, I did not have any such kind of bad experiences as such. For us, it is like no one really held us off by practicing accessibility and so on. So it has been easy path, but then I really get it that most of the times we always make excuse of like tight deadlines or maybe cost issues that maybe we will see it later, and we consider it as an afterthought. So the main thing there would be, I guess, then we need to convince the business. We need to convince. For that we need to have really good use cases. So let's say something already has been built, so you can go ahead and maybe demo them. Maybe you can show them that, see, this is not going to be usable if I am not going to make it accessible. So that's the best way. So the best way is that if someone really unless and until I feel that effect that this is going to be a very bad user experience, I'm not going to believe. So it's hard, I know, but we need to make an effort to convince them and show them some demos or show them some examples on how it's going to be beneficial for everyone. And so there are lots of use cases we can try.
Yeah, so I love that. I'm in product management, and one of the things is that if a developer comes to me and says, we could do these couple things and make my product more accessible and easier to use, because we don't know what platforms people are going to be working on. Are they going to be from their phone? Is it going to be from a computer? And even at that, using the keyboard versus the mouse. Using a keyboard versus a mouse, that should be common in today's world. So thank you. And then there was one suggestion from Maggie that I really liked, is start small. Start small, start incorporating it into your code. I think the other thing is, if you can create maybe an example of, here's one that's accessible, here's one that isn't, and show your product management team or product owner, either one, the difference, hopefully that'll help as well. So thank you so much. You did a great job. And I just want to let everybody know, it is now our lunch break. So enjoy, take an hour off, If you looked at Snugug's his site or on Instagram, he's got great food. So if you saw it, you're going to be hungry right now. So please go and come back at 1:50 Central Time, and we look forward to seeing you back here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks
Bye.
a lot.